Hi, I'm John Robbins, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
John Robbins, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm good today. About halfway through the tour, and you sort of start to get into a bit of a sort of swing of things. So you sort of, the nerves start to go away a bit, and you start to sort of look forward to stuff.
That's good.
Yeah,
always helps.
And tomorrow's the big show, the biggest room, which is the Apollo in London. So that's always kind of quite nerve-wracking, but starting to get excited about that.
Even in the bigger or smaller rooms, do you find that if the audience isn't necessarily lit that well, that you sort of forget about the space you're speaking to, and then you can focus more on what you're saying?
I quite like to. I don't like the audience to be lit because that makes people feel quite self-conscious. But I like to be able to see people, to sort of engage with the audience, and you sort of have to adapt depending on the room size, and you can't really do a great deal of sort of like audience interaction in a massive room, but it's nice to be able to sort of have that option, I think.
A very long show.
Yeah. Well, not depending on how ticket sales are.
Great, well, I'm sure they're amazing.
They are fine. Yeah. They've been labelled fine.
I believe you studied English at university, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Now, what were you sort of, growing up, what did you want to do? Were you always sort of aspiring to do something comedy or entertainment based?
No, first off, I wanted to write poetry, and then I did a bit of that at university, and quickly realised I was quite embarrassingly bad at that. Right. Then I wanted to be a music journalist, so I edited the music section of the uni newspaper. Then that job sort of ceased to exist, so I quit uni and started working in a bookshop. Wow. And then I'd always sort of been writing down like little sketch ideas, little funny things in a little notebook, and then decided to do stand-up at an open mic night in 2005, and and just immediately got sort of obsessed with doing it and finding places to do it, and different parts of the country and everything, and then sort of realised it might actually be able to be how I earn my living, and that was kind of an insane moment. And then suddenly you're kind of in Edinburgh and doing shows and getting reviews and doing interviews, and it sort of all still feels like it's still a hobby. It feels like it's a hobby, which I think is maybe a good thing. It still feels like an interest I have, because it wasn't always what I had sort of dreamt of doing as a kid. But I think it's always good to feel like it's an interest and not a job.
Yeah, because I've definitely had jobs where I would describe them as a lack of interest.
Yeah. And that's not to say sometimes you don't think, oh God, I've got to drive for 3 hours and I'm not going to get back till 2 or whatever, but it still feels like I'm having fun, which is probably good.
Always helps. Now, you famously lived in a comedy flat it was a flat really, but it was occupied by comedy at one point, or comedians. There was John Richardson and Russell Howard and Mark Oliver. But my question to you is this: if you could live with any comedians, past or present, what would be your dream residential lineup?
Oh, that's how many people am I having here?
As big as you like. It's imaginary.
I think maybe not too many.
You can have one like in another wing of the flat.
Okay, I'd have to say, so I've lived with quite a few comics in Edinburgh. I'm just thinking who are the good housemates. So first off, I'm living with George Egg, who's not only a wonderful comedian, a fantastic man, and crucially, an incredible chef.
Helps.
Yeah, so he just loves sort of, when we live in Edinburgh together, I'll come back and he'll be cooking, we'll have a few beers and we'll talk about our days, and then he'll make this amazing meal. And he has a show called, they have sort of different incarnations called The Anarchist Cook. Yeah. And he cooks meals using sort of unusual implements. So George nailed on. Maybe I listened to an interview with Chris Morris recently, and he was sort of so fascinatingly clever. Yeah. That I think maybe I'd like to have him to get my opinions from about sort of news and current affairs. Sure. Then I'd go for Lou Sanders.
Good choice.
because she just sort of makes me laugh, and I would like to enjoy hearing about her crazy adventures. So that's 4 of us. And then maybe sort of a twin room with Tim Key and John Kearns in it.
Obviously, yeah, classic twin room there.
Yeah, just bunk beds actually with Key and Kearns, because they're good. They're good for a sort of a drink and a laugh.
Yeah.
So I think I'd go for that.
Good choice.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
Sounds like fun.
Now, living there actually.
I think we can arrange this. I might be seeing Lysander's next week, actually, as it happens.
Well,
So
you can tell her she's living in my house.
surprise. Would you live in his dream house?
I love him. He's so fun.
Yeah.
He is so fun. He's the best. I wish I hung out with him more. Actually, we don't. Life gets busy, but yeah, I think he's so funny.
It's going to be good. They should film that.
They should. I mean, Chris Morris puts out maybe 1 film every 4 or 5 years, so
Yeah.
it would get a lot of press, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, it'd be good for some of us. I think Chris might be a bit annoyed.
I think it'll work out famously once the Oscars start coming in.
Yeah.
Best animated musical. So tell me a bit about your writing process.
Usually on stage, so my sort of writing timetable is usually dictated by Edinburgh, and so that's got to be ready at the end of July.
Yeah.
So depending on whether I'm touring after Edinburgh, I will sort of November, December just keep little, maybe even 2 or 3 word ideas, or I might do like a new material night like Old Rope in London and
Tiff Stevenson's
gig, or Always Be Comedy, or Laugh Train Home, or London is Funny, those sort of really nice rooms with nice people running them, where it's okay to go on with like a notepad, and I'll just sort of start talking, and then overdoing that again and again, I'll sort of, without really writing much of it down, I'll have like a bullet point list of bits. And for someone I'm useless at like remembering names or remembering what I was doing in certain years or whatever, I just have this muscle in my head where if I say something and I think, oh, that works, somehow it'll be there next week. And then it's not until probably May or June that I'll actually write it all out longhand. And then I use that, I don't know how interesting this is for people, but I use that document.
This is what they're here for.
Oh, great. Well, I use that long document as to then listen back to new recordings and work out what bits I'm missing, what bits I'm getting wrong, and what bits I've improved. So then I'll have usually about 9 or 10 versions of that document that sort of gathers comedic moss before Edinburgh. Then after Edinburgh, that's kind of done, and then I do the same thing over the tour when I add little bits in during the tour. So it's quite nice to leave it sort of just in your mind for a couple of months before actually writing it down. Sure. And I think also that means you're then not trying to remember it because it's already there. And sometimes you can tell if a comedian is reciting something from memory as opposed to actually doing it as new each time. I think it's important to keep that like feeling of this is the first time I'm saying it.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Gordillo's very good at that, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. He's great at doing a show he's done 60 times and you feel like he's having that thought in that moment. It's really, really good to watch.
I always find it fun now once I notice this. So sometimes a comedian will go over to get a drink, but they're not getting a drink. They're looking at their stuff, which is on a table, and it's very subtle. I went to a show once where the first thing that happened was they had a drink, spilt the drink all over the paper. Brilliant. It was a very funny hour. I recommend it.
Okay, I might try that then.
Yeah, you should. Just destroy all your notes at the beginning of the show and then...
I think sometimes I do, so even now, so like the show I'm going to do tonight, I read little bits out from a book, like little entries, and the whole show is in that book. I don't read from it on stage, but it's there. And I often, when I'm doing Edinburgh, will have a little, like almost like Setlist somewhere. And so I think some people think that's maybe why do you still need it written down? Well, you don't. You just sort of need to know it's there in case of some catastrophe.
Absolutely.
And also, like if I went to see a band, I would, they all have their set list written down, so they know what's coming next. But I'd never used it.
It's just a safety net, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Now, you once, or maybe more than once, I don't know, because I don't follow you daily, just I've been following you for like the last 3 or 4 days, you know, just to find out stuff. So in about 2007, you performed music in a cafe with Robin Allender and did some... Allender, yes, he is indeed. Now, do you still do music things with Robin?
No, Robin's a fantastic musician.
Yes.
And he's played with Gravenhurst and with... I can't believe I've forgotten his name. He wrote the Amelie soundtrack.
Yeah.
Oh my... Jan Tiersen! So he's been all over the world doing music and he's released his own music. But he, 2 or 3 years ago, started doing stand-up. And he got through to the final of quite a few competitions. So when this tour came up, I've never had a tour support before. Not a regular one anyway. So I thought it'd be great to spend it on the time with my best friend and, you know, get him an experience of what it's like doing a touring comedy show.
Amazing. Looking forward to watching it.
Oh, great.
Now, you were on the Christmas edition of Live at the Apollo. Do they give you any sort of requests of festive material, or do you try and put some season's greetings into it, or just do what you'd normally do at Christmas?
I was weirdly thinking about that exact thing in the car the other day. So I found out I was doing the Apollo right towards the end of Edinburgh, after I'd done a show called The Darkness of Robins, which is about the end of a relationship. And Anthony Caveney, who makes it, who's a really lovely guy, I bumped into him in a bar and he said, we've got a few slots that we keep open for the Apollo, we'd like you to do it. And it's in 10 days' time. So, and he said, oh, it's the Christmas edition as well. And what's good about Anthony is he goes and watches a lot of comedy and he will know the routine he'd like you to do and he'll suggest stuff. But I sort of panicked and thought, well, this is the Apollo, this is the biggest TV show I've done, so I'll just do my all-time best ever greatest hits, like 15 minutes. So I booked in a couple of gigs, this is like with a week to go, and I did it, and it was just so weird that some of this stuff was like 6 years old. And I thought, you can't do old gear because your heart won't be in it. The problem then was that the show I'd just done was about my life falling apart and didn't feel particularly Christmassy. So I just sort of had to, and it sort of on that episode kind of sticks out a bit because you've got people doing their like absolute like 24 karat best Club 20 stuff, do it like ripping the gig. And then I came on and started shouting about my life. But I'm sort of glad I made that decision because I think it's always best to... I think I put in like maybe 2 jokes to make it slightly relevant that it was Christmas. But I'm glad I made the decision to do the stuff that was in my head because I think it's always better to sort of fall on... Not fall on your sword, that's the wrong thing. But it's always better to like try something... Not that I felt I failed at all, but it's better in theory to sort of fail at something that is current and you believe in than to... If I'd done that old material and I'd sort of struggled and I would have been so angry with myself. Whereas actually, I from what I remember of the gig, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you. It's a lovely room as well. I'm doing it tomorrow.
Perfect.
Oh my God.
Exciting.
Yeah, just without that big fancy backdrop.
And less Christmassy stuff.
And no Christmassy stuff.
No,
yeah.
Unless you want to.
No.
It's entirely up to you.
Halloween stuff I could maybe do.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Well, when it gets near Halloween, the shops have like Easter stuff. So
that's true.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Such is the way of the world.
Now, you of course have an amazing award-winning podcast with Ellis James, and you've written a book together.
Yes, we have.
And the Holy Bible.
Yes, that's correct.
Is it religious-based stuff? What is going on with the book? Tell us about it.
So the Holy Bible is... We wanted to do one of those books that you see a lot in the 90s. So it'd be like the Men Behaving Badly book or the Lee and Herring book. Or and they sort of... You don't get them as much. But we wanted it to be quite substantial, not just sort of lots of pictures and stuff. So we decided to do like an A to Z of all of some of the interests and niche stuff we talked about on the show, but perhaps couldn't go into as much depth on the Radio X show. So we basically took, alternate letters in the alphabet and came up with an idea for all of the different topics. And so they end up as like a collection of sort of 26 essays, which is really fun to write because they're sort of, I guess they're about sort of 1.5 to 4,000 words each. So you're never kind of thinking, oh God, I've got to write another 10,000 words. So I did one on Ronnie O'Sullivan. I did one on motorway etiquette, but sort of framed as Christ giving a lecture about motorway etiquette.
Of course.
And how to behave on public transport. I did a chapter on Queen. And so altogether, Elis did a chapter on Carmarthen, his hometown, and the Welsh language. There's one in there about depression. So it's sort of, I don't think there's anyone who would enjoy all of it, but I think everyone would enjoy some of it, which I think is quite good. But I'm really proud of that book, and the audiobook was really fun to record with Elis. That was great fun.
Absolutely. And you also did Drunk Histories together about Napoleon.
Yeah, about the Battle of Waterloo. Yeah, and I drunk more, but Elis got more drunk, and that's all I really wanted out of it. Yeah. I got a photo of him being tended by a medic. Really? And then I've got a recording of him in the cab on the way home, which we played some of on the radio.
That's spectacular.
Thank you.
So you were actually both properly quite drunk.
Yeah, and I was so excited about it, and then they sent us the confirmation stuff through saying, oh, we're going to meet at this pub at 10:30 in the morning. And I was like, I can't drink at 10:30 in the morning, that's breakfast time. And they're like, well, we have to start recording at 4, you need to get drunk enough, you need to get home. And then sort of it became like a real challenge, because I all my life I've never been able to be one of those like day drinkers who, you know, goes to the pub at lunch and gets drunk. I just fall asleep. So it was kind of a test of the body and mind, but by the end we were pretty loaded.
It's always a problem if you get drunk by about 4 o'clock and then you've got to deal the rest of the day doing non-drunk things.
You know, I do drink quite regularly, but it'll be in sort of set pub hours, 7 till 11, maybe to 12. And by that time, I'm ready for bed.
Did you once really get naked on stage?
Yes. That's a big regret, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah. It was sort of in the early years of Edinburgh when you're sort of all crazy, Edinburgh's all mad, and we're all doing mad stuff. And there's a thing called the Naked Promo on a gig called Spank. Do you edit this, or is this just, does it run?
I edit coughs and stuff, but no, some are an hour long.
Oh right, cool. Maybe not mention the naked thing. Oh no, it's fine. I'm not talking about it on telly. It's fine. And I came off stage, and Will Hodgson, one of my dear friends, a comic from the Southwest, just turned to me and went, "It's not fucking Ibiza, Robbins." And I was like, yeah, you're right, actually, it's not Ibiza. But, you know, I can't start all regretting everything I've done that's stupid. But it wasn't like, didn't cause anyone any harm. No. Maybe mild distress. But they all knew that was part of the show. Yeah. But it's crazy doing mad sort of... Whereas now in Edinburgh, I will do my show, come home, George Egg will cook me a meal, and I will go to bed. So
far more civilised.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I realised maybe a bit too late, but you get the most out of Edinburgh if you're sort of... You've got to be asleep by 2. Right. I would say you've got to be in bed by 1. But the first few years I went up, it's like out till 5. Just how on earth can you expect to do a good show if you're out till 5? You complete idiot.
You live, you learn. You've done lots of shows now.
You live, you learn.
You do.
Review.
As Alanis Morissette said.
Yeah, and as I said once on a radio show, regret, review, improve, and die.
Yeah.
It's a good motto.
Exactly. Or if you die on stage, then improve.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So you hosted Beat the Internet on Dave.
Just a bit.
You did. Now, here's a question. So the idea of the show is that you would type in a bit of a sentence, and then the Google, of course, or the search engine of your choice would auto-complete that sentence, and contestants would try and work out what the top answer is.
It's that simple.
So my question is this. If I were, say, to type in John Robbins, what would be your guess as what would come up?
I reckon it would be, how many do I have to fill in?
I'll just have a guess, see if you can get anything. I've only got like the top 6 things here.
Ellis James?
Nope.
Really?
Yep.
Girlfriend?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Radio X?
No. Yeah, there's podcast.
A podcast, okay. Height?
Not
That's
height.
the thing that people often search for people for. Weight? Age?
No, none of those.
Cool, dude.
I mean, that's why I typed instead of your name and it just knew.
Philosopher. No, so what are they?
Okay, so there's Tor, Twitter, Girlfriend, Bristol, curiously.
Nice, I'm from Bristol.
Yeah. Podcast and Bandcamp.
Oh, that's nice. They're pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, not like idiot, big silly fool,
Yeah.
tawdry swear words, nothing like that. No, I'm pleased with that.
Exactly. Now, roast battle is quite popular these days, that format of comedy. If you could roast anybody, who would it be?
Well, interestingly, I was asked to do Roast Battle, the UK one,
Yeah.
and it's not really my world, but I did offer to roast myself.
Oh.
I think it'd be quite funny, but they didn't go for that, which is absolutely fair enough.
Yeah.
So that's what I would, and that's essentially the show you're about to see tonight. But that's sort of where my comedy comes from, and I think the people who do Roast Battle are incredibly talented, and it's really fun, a very popular show, but it's not really, I would get too shy, I think. I would probably also get immediately incredibly hurt. And I wouldn't want to sort of, I don't like being mean. But I accept that's not what it is, but it's not, I'm not sure I would get into that. I'm not confident enough. I'd be awful.
I don't feel like that's in you to want to do it.
It's my vibe, really. That's not to say that like I have some higher vibe, but it's not in my wheelhouse. There's a story that made me laugh so much when I heard it, and it was in Edinburgh, and James Acaster and David Trent were asked to do a rap battle, and they sort of didn't really want to do it negatively, they wanted to do it positively, but the people wouldn't like let them do that, which is fair enough. So they ended up just singing I bless Jesus every day that I found you to each other, just with their arms around each other saying bless Jesus every day that I found you, bless Jesus every day that I found you, which I think is so sweet and funny. That's probably what I'd like to do, something like that.
I'd watch at least an hour of that.
Yeah, I'd watch an hour of that. I'd love to Acaster would be great on that. And Trent, actually. Don't see enough of David Trent these days.
But we should.
We should. I must give him a call.
Now, you are on Bad Golf with Alex Vaughan.
Yes.
So the idea of that is that you find it sort of fun, people that aren't the best at golf, to be documented doing that as opposed to people that are professionals at golf. I was wondering, is there anything you're worse at? So there's a sport in a coastal town in Australia, for example, called tuna tossing, where they throw a 20-pound tuna as far as they can. Would you say you'd be better or worse at that than golf? It might be a good spin-off.
So what's it called? Tuna tossing?
Tuna tossing, yeah, traditional.
A YouTube channel called Bad Tuna Tossing.
Oh, yeah. Port Lincoln in Australia.
We are both bad at golf, and the reason we set up the YouTube channel was we love each other, and we love playing golf with each other, and we love golf YouTube channels. Some of them are massive, like millions and millions of views, but we sort of felt that they were all like about what's the best, how far can you hit it, what ball stops you getting 2 degrees of, and like what clubs give you this sort of like stuff, whereas actually most people who play golf aren't very good at it. And I wasn't enjoying golf because I was like, I'm rubbish at this and everyone's amazing. Whereas actually the truth is, most people are pretty shit at golf. And that was reducing my enjoyment of playing. Whereas once you embrace that, they've just turned on the music in the venue. You won't be able to clear this, actually.
I have all sorts going on, don't worry about it.
Okay. That's just, that's Killer Queen. Don't know why Killer Queen's on the playlist.
You're very fond of Queen, aren't you?
Very fond, but Killer Queen is not on this playlist. This is a hot space only playlist. Anyway, so we set up the channel to basically celebrate being rubbish at golf and hopefully encourage people who are also rubbish at golf not to feel they can't go to a club and play and enjoy it and stuff.
And where do you stand on Crazy Golf? Is that also something you could visit?
Yeah, I've done a Crazy Golf in London. I kind of like it. I actually bit of a brag here. Went to New York with a few comedians, and we went to play Crazy Golf, and I beat the course record of a child's pirate-themed golf course. But still got the scorecard.
That should be like the first thing on all your tour posters.
Yeah. That's the best. That's the best thing on my CV, really.
Yeah. So I've got these awards, but also,
the children's pirate-themed golf course record.
Yeah. Now, so here's a question: Do you still think about Johnny Vaughan every time you're in the shower? And have you met him yet?
I met Johnny Vaughan many times, so that was a question. That was something Richard Herring talked to me about on his podcast. It's like these sort of repetitive brain worms. And I once read an interview in the Radio Times with Johnny Vaughan when he was doing the Big Breakfast, and they said, "How do you deal with the early mornings?" And he said, "Well, the most important thing is just get straight in the shower. Get straight in the shower." That's how he talks, by the way. And that just stuck in my head. So every time I took a shower, I thought about Johnny Vaughan giving that piece of advice. I then told Richard Herring it. Then other people started saying, now I'm in the shower, I think about Johnny Vaughan. John Robbins thinking about Johnny Vaughan in the shower. So now when I'm in the shower, I think about other people thinking about me, thinking about Johnny Vaughan in the shower. So it sort of sorted itself out.
But he's not being replaced by anyone else. He's still your go-to when you're in the shower.
It's Johnny Vaughan. Yeah. Johnny Vaughan in there as well.
I'd like to pick up on this like every 10 years just to see if there is someone else.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a new show, which I'm looking forward to seeing today. Hot Shame. Hot Shame. What is it about? Tell us everything except the stuff that's in it.
It's about shame.
Yeah.
Hotness? No, it's more the heat of the shame. So it comes from a feature we have on the radio show where people write in with shameful memories. And that started out by me making Ellis laugh with all the sort of tiny things that kept me up at night. And I decided for this show to just sort of explore that by writing down as many, like I was saying about the writing process earlier, just writing down all of the shameful memories I have, going around gigs and reading them out, seeing which ones were funny, which ones were too disturbing. And that sort of forms the backbone of the show. And then there's 2 stories either side of that. So the show is actually just 2 stories. But it's also, a bit about sort of manhood and the sort of contradictions and anxieties I have about what kind of man I am, other men, how men behave. But it's not that's not the main thrust of it, but there is stuff in there about what sort of vision of manhood I think is healthy and what's not, but also accepting that even in the most well-meaning of men there are sort of frustrations and elements of self-loathing and that you can't really ignore. Yeah.
Exciting. Now, you of course took it to Edinburgh Fringe, and I think counted around 42 dates that you're doing this year. Have you already started thinking about your next tour, or is that something that you do like after the new year?
So this will be my 3rd tour in 2 years. Wow. So one, The Darkness of Robins in 2018, then one with Ellis at the end of 2018, then this one, and an Edinburgh in there as well. So at the minute, I am looking forward to doing the rest of these shows, getting it done and maybe having a bit of time off, because you do get a certain fatigue, not necessarily in the mind, but I don't know, it sounds like complaining about nothing, but the fatigue of travelling and driving and waiting and getting back late, and also what happens on a tour. I don't know if it's the same for the other comics. So say you're gigging 5 nights a week, you think, great, I've got 2 days off, that'll be my time to relax. But all the other stuff you need to do, so the podcast and pre-records and interviews and all manner of other things, blood tests, had one of those today, go into those 2 days. So the days off become more busy than the days you're working. So I think I just need to take a bit of time after this to maybe try something a bit less, wearing, I would say.
So I was thinking about that earlier on today. It occurred to me that I'm essentially on other people's UK tours, because I kind of go to where they are at venues, and it never ends. It's like,
I know,
like a 200-date tour or something. It's exciting. Have you got any TV stuff lined up in the sort of next year, or are you focusing on touring at the minute?
No, Elis and I are launching a new podcast next week, or maybe the week after, which is about mental health. So really look forward to doing more of that. We sort of interview people about times in their professional lives when they've sort of really struggled with something, or had to get over something, get through something. So next year, more radio and podcasts, and I might write something, because the last 2 years I worked it out the other day, 160 or 70 tour shows, 26 Edinburgh shows, and all the gigs in between that. So as much as I'm really enjoying this and I love the show and I really love having Robin here supporting and seeing him, it's time to maybe let the brain relax a bit.
Finally, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell show at home, and of course your fans around the world?
What
Any message, an inspirational message, a thought, advice, anything?
That's a good question. It reminds me of once Freddie Mercury and Queen were playing in Brazil, and the reporter ends by going, how does it feel to play the biggest, hey Fred, he goes, hi Fred, how does it feel to play the biggest venue ever in Brazil? And Freddie goes, I don't know, my darling, I haven't done it yet. I would say be kind to yourselves, folks. Be kind to other people as well. It's so much healthier way to spend your time. Also, get a lot of sleep, chill out, enjoy your time, have in all manner of ways positive impact on your mental health and those of others around you. I think it's quite a good message to have.
Wow, it's a very good message. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming on the Sarah O'Connell.
Thank you so much for coming to interview me. I hope you enjoy the show.
So do I.
I'm going to go and gobble down some tofu now.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, and I hope Queen playing wasn't a problem.
No, I like Queen.
Well,
It's the actual band Queen in the background. I don't know how you did it.
They're playing it in the. It's my walk-in music, and it's coming through the in-house speakers in the dressing rooms.
Adam Lambert, the whole.
Just pipe it in whenever I go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. And I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
That was me pointing at comments. I wasn't pointing at my genitals. I was going comments. They should do a share.
So we can see them too.
Subscribe, like you should be able to go like share, like subscribe, or something like that really fast.
Need to work it
anyway,
out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to yourself.